This guy is going to be teaming up or battling with Batman, which is a large man who fights crime nocturnally. If you're unaware of who the Batman is, in a forthcoming comic crossover. This is one of, I don't know, like 75 comic crossovers we've had this year, which is an interesting thing because a lot of people don't like comic crossovers, but they sell. So we're going to talk about comic crossovers and we're going to talk about what you would like to see be crossed over with whom or whatever here in just a minute. Welcome to Kyle and Jay's Q&A. I have no idea what the hell is happening in the chat.
Are you dope too? Ed makes earworms, man.
I have no idea what any of that means. So, anyway, if you're looking for an earworm, go look up a song called Caffeine by a group called Matstagram. Anyway, I played it for Jay. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
So, comic crossovers, because I have no idea what the hell is happening in the chat. Let's talk about comic crossovers, and maybe eventually they'll get over their ADHD and join us. So, they announced last week that Deadpool and Batman are teaming up. Do you have strong thoughts on the Deadpool Batman team ups, Jay?
I kind of wish they would have paired him with a less serious character.
Ooh.
Because, I mean, Deadpool.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we've already had, granted, it's a totally different character, and I understand that. But we've already had the serious tone with Deadpool and Wolverine and Deadpool and Cable. Like, I would have liked to seen him be with, like, a Green Lantern or, I don't know, Harley. Why don't you just go ahead and put him with Harley?
Can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
Have you read any Batman from before 1990? Did you ever watch the 1960s Batman TV show?
Yes. If they're going with 66 Batman, okay,
right.
I can get behind that.
Batman wasn't always,
I know.
I hate everything. I'm so sad. No. Batman was downright goofy for a long time.
Yeah.
So, like, and they're having Grant Morrison write it. Like, okay, Grant Morrison, like, goes and does the tree drugs, comes back and writes the crazy. So, like, I was very excited for it because I thought, gee whiz, this is an opportunity to go back to, like, the Shelley Moldoff style, like, psychedelic Batman. When he was fighting the Bug and some of these really dumb characters, right?
Yeah.
And you have Deadpool, who, oh, by the way, wasn't always goofy.
No.
Was actually very serious for a long time.
Smart alecky, but yeah.
But still serious. So, like, at some point, I think it's great that we're leaning back into previous iterations of these characters and telling those stories. Like, Zeb Wells is a much more comedic writer than Grant Morrison. But Grant Morrison understands maybe more of the history of Batman than Zeb Wells does. So it wouldn't shock me if Zeb Wells does a more serious Batman and a more serious Deadpool. And Grant Morrison does a more psychedelic or strange Batman and a more psychedelic or strange Deadpool. And because Capullo is drawing Morrison, it's going to have a certain look. And because Dan Mora is drawing Zeb Wells, it's going to have a certain look. So, like, I think we need to get off of the track of, I wish they'd have paired him with a less serious character. Like, and that's kind of what I want to talk about, right? Like, when we talk about character team ups, right? Or we talk about crossovers, how do we make it so people don't assume, or, so people understand the point of a crossover?
Folks, this right here is the reason why you will never be able to pinpoint what Kyle is thinking, because I 100% thought Kyle was going to be like, that's dumb. We already have this. I 100% thought that. And then for me to give him the answer that I was like, this is what I'm thinking, I'd like to see him with a less serious character. And then boom, he hits me with this. None of you know what Kyle's thinking, okay? None of you know.
It's true. Nobody does. But no, it's so I think the thing about a crossover like that works, and let's talk about Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let's talk about Batman Elmer Fudd, Aquaman and Jabberjaw. Right? Like, Martian Manhunter and Marvin the Martian. And then when you go over to Marvel, you talk about, when Forbush Man used to show up in serious comics, or slapstick, or funny Deadpool would show up in other people's books, or Venom, who is a much funnier character that people give Venom credit for.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, there are a ton of crossovers like that work, and Marvel and DC have done it before, where it's been super earnest, right? That's Avengers JSA or JLA.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I hear from a lot of people that they don't like crossover events. In the chat, what is it? Do you like crossovers? And if you're one of those people who's like, I don't love a crossover event, what is it about them you don't like? I used to be that guy. Again, and then Batman was hanging out with Elmer Fudd. Batman was hanging out with the Turtles. We had some of these characters that, for lack of a better term, didn't make sense together until they absolutely made sense together.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books is Superman versus Spider-Man. Yeah. Jay got distracted by something. I don't like it when Jay does that. Jay doesn't like that he can't tell what I'm thinking. When Jay gets up from his chair, I get all confused.
Crossover classics.
Yes.
One of my favorite books. I love this book. Like the Hulk squeezing the life out of Batman, or you have Doc Ock and Lex Luthor in the same freaking cell. Like, that's great stuff. It's great stuff.
No, that's true.
I don't get folks that, I kind of do. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit. I get people like different things, right? But I'm just like, is there such tribalism with some folks to where we can't have Marvel characters cross over with DC characters without, well, if Superman doesn't beat this Marvel character, it's just because DC wrote it. Or if Sentry doesn't beat this DC characters just because, or beats this DC character is just because Marvel wrote it. Like, these are supposed to be things as fans we don't think we would ever see. We're about to, y'all, have gargoyles and Fantastic Four in the same book. Let's go. I'm all for it. All for it.
Ed, that was Crossover Classics. It's a trade paperback.
The Marvel DC collection.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you said kind of intrigued me, the idea of having one character win over another character, and it's just because that's who wrote it. But it would make no sense for Marvel to make a DC character look strong in a Marvel book. It would make no sense for a DC character to look strong, or go the other way.
Right, but you're using logic with comic fans.
Right, for sure. But the thing about it is, like, when you talk about crossovers, I don't necessarily love when it's where did we come up with the idea that it was Marvel versus DC as opposed to two people leading the pack trying to grow this industry, right? When did we get stuck on the idea that it's Marvel versus DC, that they're actually battling?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew, because it goes back to Star Wars versus Star Trek, and then they threw in Lord of the Rings with that. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not like a mega fan of any of these. Like, I'm not an Ed when it comes to Lord of the Rings, and I'm not a Kyle when it comes to comics. All I know is what I like. And if I like something, I'm going to like it. I don't care what property it belongs to. I just like it. So to me, it's never people are like, oh, you're more excited to see Superman, aren't you? It was like, well, yeah, but that's just because Superman's my dude. But if you don't think I'm also excited to see a Fantastic Four movie or any superhero property, you're out of your mind. To me, it's never been Marvel versus DC, because it's like two sides, same coin with me. I love both. I love it all. Love all the nerd stuff. Like, I don't know why we have to pit stuff against each other like that, but
yeah, that's the thing that always has rubbed me the wrong way about the argument, right? Like, it's why, I'll be honest, I had such huge problems with certain DC films, right? It's, you're going to make Batman and Superman look weak next to Wonder Woman because she has the next movie coming out? You got to put your characters over. It's the one thing that wrestling will teach you, right? You got to put the right people over to be able to tell your stories. Yep. Well, so that makes sense in a crossover to me, is that, okay, Spider-Man is going to look weak in a DC book, and, Batman is going to look weak in a Marvel book. That's always going to be the way it is. But do all people not have their own strengths? TJ just says, I hate it if and when one or both characters needs to be written totally out of character to work. But we just were talking about that, TJ. Like, Jay was saying, he wished Deadpool had been written with a lighter character. But if you do Deadpool and Booster Gold, that book is going to go nowhere other than just to make fart jokes. Right? You've got to have, for every funny guy, you've got to have a serious guy. For every, you got to have a straight man. Laurel had to have Hardy. Abbott had to have Costello. George Carlin had to have the 80s. Ronald Reagan. Like, you got to have a.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you
play off of.
I can give you an example, comic wise. So for Valiant, love Quantum and Woody. love Archer and Armstrong. There's a book called Delinquents where they put those two teams together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it was a bad book, but it just wasn't as good as I had hyped it up in my head for it to be. Because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
man, those characters should work so well together. They really didn't. So it's I don't know, it's a weird thing where I was like, well, you got the serious character, the funny character over here, and you got a serious character and a funny character over here. That should work. And then sometimes it just doesn't.
No, it's true. I mean, but again, Quantum and Woody are more comedic, but Archer and Armstrong is not necessarily serious. Like that's two. They're two guys. Like if you made it a spectrum, Quantum and Woody with you know, Bloodshot. Now you've got the yin and the yang. You've got the happy and sad. You've got the drama. Archer and Armstrong with Shadow Man. You've got the yin and the yang. You've got the happy and sad. Like you've got the drama. So again, I think that idea of writing a character against type, I think is another thing that people misinterpret, right? Like you're not writing them against type. You're writing them totally out of character. You're writing them to portray other parts of their existing character, right? Like again, I have a friend named Danny, and Danny loves superhero movies. He doesn't read a ton of comic books. So the only Batman he knows really is Batman since the original film. Now he didn't really watch the 66 Batman show. He only knows Batman from the movies where it's dark and gritty and grimy. And even with Jim Carrey's Joker or Riddler, sorry, like is still kind of this dark world, right? So he doesn't see Batman in Technicolor. Batman with the whole rainbow, like we all did who watched the 66 show, right? Vincent Price as Egghead just eating the scenery. Right? And at the same time, he only knows Deadpool from Ryan Reynolds. He doesn't know Deadpool from Rob Liefeld or in X-Force. Right? So for him to be able to recognize a lighter side of Batman, somebody's gonna have to show him.
Yeah.
Right? For him to recognize a more serious, darker side of Deadpool, somebody's gonna have to show him. And that only works if you do Danny Way Deadpool or X-Force Deadpool. And it only works if you do 60s era Batman or Shelley Maldoff Batman. Again, when, my God, some of the things Batman was fighting was just out of an acid trip. For some reason, everything becomes a competition. You can't like both. GoBots versus Transformers, Snyder versus Gunn. No reason it should be DC versus Marvel. Just think of the fun we could have. It's true that you have to compare everything to something. Very seldom do you come across something like Billy Joel's The Stranger album where there's nothing to compare it to. Or Dark Side of the Moon. But is that good for the stories? What do you guys think? Do you think it's good for the stories to compare the two companies or to compare the two characters? Or do we just need to take them at the face value they give us when the books come out?
That's a good question.
Okay, I will wait.
Yeah.
The next part of the show, though, is I think the part that people are going to have the most fun with, and we're going to have the most fun with. Want to get through the serious bits and then get to the fun. It's like eating your dessert last.
Yeah.
Which is for psychopaths, but for whatever reason, it works on content. Guys, well, Jay thinks, and I wait for you to comment. If you're over on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, click the like, give a subscribe, click the bell, all those things. By the way, you know those rankings that you get by commenting? You get 25 points a comment. Do you know what you get more points for? You can rank up faster on the leaderboard, on the podium, super chats and super stickers.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I personally have never compared stories. So I don't have a good answer for that.
It's an interesting thought. And I don't know the answer, to be real honest. I don't. Because I think sometimes you have to compare preconceptions. Otherwise, you'd have no frame of reference. But other times, I think you have to let those preconceptions go. Again, like I was talking about with Batman, we don't know what Batman Grant Morrison is going to write. We don't know what Batman Zeb Wells is going to write. You know, it's... And it's the same with Deadpool, right? We don't know which version of Deadpool in the evolution of the character each guy is going to choose to work with. So you have to go and you have to have some preconception as to who the characters are. But again, I think you have to compare when we go into this book. I think we have to look at more than anything the Marvel style versus the DC style. DC characters have always been more earnest. With the exception of a few Vertigo books like Doom Patrol and a few very random characters like Blue Beetle or Booster Gold or some of the Lanterns, which, by the way, the guys who created those and wrote those came over from Marvel or Timely, depending on when. Right? Where they had created similar characters like, I don't know, Ant-Man or, you know, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that were like that. I'm blanking. But anyway, we have to compare styles as opposed to stories. You know, Marvel's always been a little looser with their style, whereas DC's been more strict. So it'll be interesting to see. TJ James says Batman Deadpool work because Bats works with guys like Plastic Man and Beetle, and Wade works with guys like Wolverine. Yeah, but at the same time, again, remember early Deadpool was just Deathstroke. So wasn't until later that Deadpool became Forbush Man. All right, now for the fun bit. I'm tired of talking about this.
Okay.
Let's have some fun. You are Marie Javins and C.B. Cebulski. For those of you who don't know, those are the EOCs for Marvel and DC, or DC and Marvel, respectively. Marie Javins is the editor-in-chief at DC, and C.B. Cebulski is the editor-in-chief at Marvel. You can you can only do 2 books. Each company gets one of the 2 books. right? Just like we're doing with Deadpool, Wolverine, or Deadpool, Batman, Batman, Deadpool. Who do you want to cross over? Between the two. Do you want me to go first?
Yes, because I'm thinking.
So if I wanted to go more obscure, I would do the whole Ant-Man Giant Man thing, crossing over with the Atom. Or sorry, I would do like a villains crossover where it's somebody like the Leader versus somebody like Damien Dark or Ra's al Ghul, or teaming up with the Leader, or the Leader would team up with like Ra's al Ghul or Damien Dark, so they're controlling armies, something like that. TJ James says Swamp Thing, Man Thing. Here's the problem: they haven't made enough green ink since the creation of pigment to do that book. See, but I'd like to see like a giant-sized Man Thing crossover with something like a. If you're going to have a versus book, do a crossover with Man Thing and Poison Ivy. Constantine and Doctor Strange. Okay, let's put some rails on this for Jay because he's struggling. It's a straight team up. They're not fighting each other. They're straight teaming up. Who are two, one from each, where they're teamed up.
Yeah, I got it now. I was just waiting for you
No,
to
you're
get done.
good.
Interrupt. I got a weird one. Vandal Savage and Sabretooth.
Okay.
Just because Sabretooth, to me, in the comics, is a lot smarter than we've seen him portrayed on the TV screen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he is.
And Vandal Savage is basically the first immortal, the way they kind of portray him. So having the two of them together, I think would be like a Justice League Avengers type crossover to defeat him.
Mm-hmm. Like I just had the thought when you mentioned Vandal Savage, only because of Legends of Tomorrow. Rip Hunter, Time Master, and Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
That would be fun. You know, people can move through time and dimension.
Oh, see, now that just makes that makes me a little sad because although this character is not used anymore, I would do let's see, you said Rip Hunter, Doctor Strange. I would do Strange and Sideways.
Yeah. Well, like one of my answers to this for so long, especially now that Marvel has the characters back, is I would love to see like a like when Dark Horse had. I can't use it anymore because Marvel has the characters back. When Dark Horse had Star Wars, Chewbacca and the Wendigo.
Okay.
I like Black Canary Elektra. I just don't know that Elektra could hang with Black Canary.
That's true. You have like the Trickster and Paste Pot Pete.
Well, okay. Let's play that game. All right, chat and Jay. Awful villains teaming up to take on heroes from both companies. So again, you have like Condiment King and like the Schemer versus Batman and Daredevil, which are the characters those books came from. Or, you know, the Tinkerer and Clockmaster from
Clockmaster.
Right. Versus Spider-Man and the Flash. Like, let's hear it. Let's hear your dumb, like, if you had to put team two dumb villains up, that'll never happen. Who would it be? And would you do it because the villains are interesting, or would you do it because the heroes teaming up would be interesting? Because, like, I love the idea of having Mirror Master come over and cross over with Spot.
Ooh.
Spot. Because I think they'd be unbeatable. I do not think Spider-Man and I guess technically Mirror Master was originally a Flash villain, but because of the show, we'll give him the Green Arrow. I don't think Spider-Man and Green Arrow can defeat them.
No, not at all. Oh, wow. That is, yeah, that's a tough one. As far as week one, and remember, you got to put recent movies and stuff aside when I put, or shows, when I put these two together. Because it's either Kite Man and Mole Man.
Kite Man.
Or Polka Dot Man and Mole Man versus Fantastic Four and Batman. But if we're going to do Fantastic Four, wouldn't be really all that fair to use all four plus Batman.
Right.
So it'd have to be Johnny. Let's put Johnny and Batman together. That's a combo I'd like to see.
Can I tell you what crossover I'm shocked they've never done? And there's a joke about it that I want to make, but I can't because decency. But Elastic Man and Mr. Fantastic together, like, versus, like, I don't know, the laws of physics, like, versus Stretch Armstrong and like.
That's good. That's good.
So, okay, if let's take it out of the realm of comic books and into the realm of film and TV.
Okay.
If Feige and Gunn could get together, because we know they're buddies because they've worked together a bunch, and get it done. Superhero team from Marvel, superhero team from DC, teaming up to take on, let's just go with Galactus. Or, let's go with Galactus and the In-Betweener.
Oh, wow. I know one of the teams would automatically, for me, I've talked about them a lot. Fantastic Four and the Terrifics. I'd really like to see that team up. Really like to see that team up.
See, for me, I was thinking the classic Justice Society. And probably the Future Foundation. Defenders and Doom Patrol, I really like. That is a really good one, TJ. That would be perfect for taking those two on too. Like, because you could also do like the Defenders or the Thunderbolts and the Suicide Squad. You know, but none of them are really cosmic enough. But with Defenders and Doom Patrol, you get some of that cosmic level to really take on a Galactus and in-betweener kind of character.
Yeah. And that's good because you had also said bringing the movies, stepping out of the comics into the movies, because Doom Patrol does exist in a world with Flex Mentallo.
Right. That's exactly it. Flex Metallo, man, like is a way to kind of deal with some of the Cosmos thing, right?
Yeah.
See, but I would also like to see like a Legion of Doom team up with like a Sinister Foes of Spider-Man kind of thing. Or the Legion of Doom team up with Baron Zemo and the Red Skull.
The Legion of Doom.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Legion.
See, if I'm going to do Legion, I'm totally teaming them up with the X-Men. But like the one with like the third gen X-Men. So where it's like Angel and Legion and Havoc and you know those guys, because I think the Legion of Superheroes are so straight-laced most of the time that having the Gen Z of the X-Men would just be like salt and or like oil and water.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's just.
But like, let's go beyond the big two. Like, if you could team the Turtles up with somebody, or you could team Archer and Armstrong up with somebody in the Pantheon. What do you think? Like, again, Deadpool and Cable with Archer and Armstrong would be fire.
Yeah. It would be. And then you could have, man, oh wow. And then you could have your Legion of Doom, Brotherhood of Mutants, Lizard League from Invincible getting together and just wrecking shop. The Guardians versus the Seven.
Well, I would love, and I'm sure if Nikki is here, I'm putting it into the ether. I know now is not a good time to put this in the ether, but Superman and Homelander.
Superman bodies him quick.
Team up.
Oh, team up. Okay. Then, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. The amount of destruction in the name of we have to be together. Like the two of them would probably kill each other.
Bro, I see Homelander slipping him red kryptonite right off the
Right.
bat.
That's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
oh.
Like, right. Exactly.
And who do you get to stop them? Omni-Man and Invincible. Or at least
There you go.
attempt. They can attempt.
Well, I was thinking the Terror from the Tick.
Oh. Yeah.
You know, like
The terror. Jeez. Oh, goodness. We talking Jackie Earl Haley terror from the Prime? Okay.
I mean, it's maybe the best representation of the Terror outside of the original Tick comics. Okay. Jackie Earl Haley as the Terror teams up with Jackie Earl Haley from Preacher.
God of Meat.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Versus, hold on.
Beast Boy because he's vegetarian.
What was his name? Hold, please. Tim Blake Nelson from The Watchmen. And Tim Blake Nelson from The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Come on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, guys, this is just for fun. We're just fantasy casting now. Like, so you have Looking Glass versus Buster Scruggs.
My goodness.
Oh man.
Could have said Tim Blake Nelson is leader too.
It's true, I could have, but I didn't.
Baron Blitzkrieg and Red Skull versus JSA and Invaders. Batman and the Tick versus Firefly and Barry.
Ooh, that would be fun. That would be real fun.
Who has the Tick? Who is the publisher?
The license
Yeah.
of the Tick right now? You know, I don't know. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull it up. Because you know what I want if it's available. Tick Thundercats.
Oh, Thunder, Thundercats, Spoon.
So there's a series called Dark Ride that featured the Ticket image, but let me sort. Um, It looks like New England Comics.
Hmm.
Let me. No, that's not who I want to text. That's not who I want to text. Come on, scroll up. There we go. Dude. Who owns? Okay. See if he texts me back. That's what I think. Is that it's still Edland in New England, but I don't know. I see, and that's the thing. Like, I love these ideas of, the Tick and the Turtles, versus the Foot Clan and the Terror,
Yeah.
or Aquaman and Danger Boat
Danger Boat.
versus like Black Manta and you come up with whoever.
Oh, what's the
Powdered Toast Man.
I was gonna say the ship the Authority uses, because isn't that a sentient being?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I would love to see some of that kind of crossover happen. And I think it's more likely to happen at smaller companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier for Dynamite and New England to cross over a character than it is for Marvel and DC. A lot less lawyers involved, likely. A lot less money involved, likely. And it could really blow up. I look at, again, how many times has Sean told the story that he picked up a Batman TMNT crossover and it got him back. He got him in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that only happens because IDW is willing to work with DC and DC is willing to work with IDW. Doctor Who and Rip Hunter Time Master together. Well, it wouldn't be that hard for Titan and DC to come to terms.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
there's the Star Trek Green Lantern.
Right.
There's been tons of ones that part of me is like, man, how did they do this? Like that just, but then you have, Batman Predator, you have
Max.
Superman Aliens.
Well, Batman the Mask. The Max. Yeah. Like, because Alien and Predator both at the time weren't at Marvel. They're both at Marvel now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level of, there are a lot of interesting opportunities out there for crossovers. I'm just trying to think of, like, if there's one that we haven't really named that, or one of the companies we haven't really talked about a lot is Image.
Mm-hmm.
Who has Transformers now, who has G.I. Joe now, who has Invincible, who has The Walking Dead. Like, okay, Rick Grimes and Jesse Custer versus the Saint of Killers and, Negan.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Right, Wonder Woman, Red Sonja. Wonder Woman, Vampirella. Harley Quinn, Barbarella. Like, there are a ton of those, man. Ooh. And this is one that I think they could get done. Tigra and Panthera. Or who was Kristen Wiig in the terrible Wonder Woman movie? Cheetah and Panthera. And then if you really want to throw in or make it a real fun one, add in White Tiger from Marvel. You could call it Charlie's Cats. It could star Lucy Liu, Drew Barrymore, and Cameron Diaz.
Hey, Lorena.
It could just be a shot-for-shot remake of Charlie's Angels, but they're all dressed like cats.
I can see it.
That's one of my dumber ideas. But no, I like this idea of crossing over, that Marvel and DC are finally in a point where they got the green light to go make some money on this. I don't think it's going to happen often. But I love the idea of putting out there into the ether the smaller companies working with the bigger companies.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember, when was the last time these two companies crossed over? When was the last time? Was it the Amalgam stuff? Or
JLA Adventures.
Okay. But when was that is what I'm asking. That's something I missed out on. You remember how
Early 2000s?
Early 2000s? Okay. I mean, I've heard of it. I just have never myself.
Hold on. (2003, 2004) is, I think, the last time it happened. I don't recall it ever really happening since then. But yeah, I mean, you could do, like, again, Mad Cave and Dynamite could do like Dick Tracy and Green Hornet. That would make a lot of sense. IDW could do Turtles, Howard the Duck. Dark Horse could do Usagi Yojimbo and, like another, I was going to say Bunny Mask from Aftershock, but that doesn't exist anymore. But you could do something like that, Usagi Yojimbo and Iron Fist. What hair, Steve?
For you, the beard. So my question is this more of a logistics, red tape kind of thing? Is it some kind of pride thing?
I think a lot of it probably has to do with licensing. And who makes the money? Who gets the money? Who pays the money? I would be interested in talking to Nick about this because I'm sure he would know. Or really, I could text CB, but I probably wouldn't get a text back this late. What are the hangups? And I know with the big two, a lot of it is just legal wrangling, right? It's who owns the IP? How do you share that IP? And then again, if it's a licensed product, so like when we talk about things like Gizmo Duck, or we talk about DuckTales, and you mean subliminary, Steve. We talk about things like DuckTales or Red Sonja or, all of the Disney stuff that Dynamite is doing. That's all licensed.
Yeah.
So they don't actually own that stuff. They're just using it. So it becomes this idea of you have to run it by the people who hold the license.
Yeah, like I said, this is coming from, you know, way on the outside of how comic book industry things work. You know,
You're right, Steve. I meant subliminal.
crossovers, but no, we have Fast and Furious to do stuff like that.
Right. And at this point, you could say, okay, if our bad guy's going to be Galactus, it could be Silver Surfer, and that guy from the Fast and the Furious who jumped his car into space. Like again, that we can get all kinds of dumb when we start getting into that kind of stuff.
Because I always wondered, like I told people a lot, Hack Slash is like one of my favorite series from Image. Hack Slash, outside of Invincible, go the horror route. Hack Slash has crossed over with so many properties. It's insane.
Vampirella was a great one.
Yeah, so I'm very curious, like how to learn how that stuff works, because I mean they were crossing with Reanimator, with Ash. They had Chucky. They've had Evil Ernie. They've had really, really indie people like Halloween Man. I have a comic I got from Drew. I can't remember his last name off the top of my head. I'm sorry. When he was at Comic Palooza, and it was Hack Slash meets Halloween Man. So I'm always curious, like, man, how do they get all these properties to cross over like that with them?
Well, like when you get into like Reanimator, right? Some of that stuff is just public domain. You can just do it. Like at this point, you can cross Steamboat Willie over with just about anything, right? Because it's public domain. So much of the, when you think about like the Black Terror and some of these things that you see in some of the um, more odd Dynamite books, right? Or when you see a licensed character or a character whose name show up at a very, very small publisher or in a book by a self funder or a crowdfunder. It's not because they bought the license, because the license has become public domain. Like when we had that opener that had all of the radio clips in it, all that was public domain. All that stuff came out before 1930. So I was able to get away with using not before 1930, but was all public domain stuff. From the 40s and 50s, where the copyright was up on it and it became usable for that. Other things, you have to negotiate. You have to find somebody who's willing to play ball. So again, like, okay, let's just fantasy cast for another second here. You want to do Vampirella, Barbarella, and Red Sonja crossover with Heat Seeker, Gun Honey, and the girl with the dragon tattoo? Wow. There'd be so many boobs in that book, you wouldn't know where to look. But the thing about it is those are two companies that could easily play ball together, right? Because of the way they operate and where they operate in this ecosystem. It would be much harder than to get them to throw in Mary Jane Watson, Gwen Stacy, and Harley Quinn and the Silver Sable. Right? Like, it gets infinitely more complicated. So I imagine that's a lot of the answer. But
question.
He hasn't texted me back about who owns the tick. I do believe it is NEC. But needless to say. All right, everybody. We're gonna call it here. I thought this would be more of a everybody had crossovers they wanted to see kind of thing, like our fantasy casting episodes. But uh, I am still like after about an hour, it hurts for me to sit with my leg down. So hopefully that'll be less true after tomorrow. So I will be uh, we're going to be signing off in a second. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But tomorrow night, here on the EXP, you have Miss Jen doing What's in the Box. The Geek Chat is off. They both have like work requirements this week that are going to keep them from doing their show. Again, I had said I might fill in. I will not be filling in because from 10 to midnight, it's Sketch Up with Kyle and K-pop. Mel and Mog are at Phoenix Fan Expo. And so K-pop Junkie from the comments and I are taking over. We will have Jay Fosgett, Jason Strutz, Fish Lee, and Don Wen joining us on the show, where you can watch the show and they will sketch and you can bid live. I'm hoping to find out what they're drawing very soon. That would make my life a little easier. And then it's entirely possible, again, if my leg feels good, that I will be live over on CBSN after that tomorrow night, doing a little bit of a live sale. Because if my leg feels better, I will be able to finally get all of my shipping caught up without an excruciating amount of pain. Then on Friday morning, I will be back. Well, Friday at 1. I will be back with Matthias as we will be talking to Maytal Zoot, who is Zoot, who is writing Sisterhood over at Ghost Machine. That is a Hyde Street spinoff. Great interview. We already did it. But it's going to be a great interview. You guys are going to enjoy it. You're going to learn a bunch. And we'll be going through all the other FOC books that are on FOC this week. And then Nick, tomorrow night, has a Batman cover, has a Mr. Mxyzptlk page, has a Joe Sinnott The Thing, which if you go look at the thumbnail, is Nick's head. He will have a ton of cool stuff tomorrow night or Friday night on the show, as will Nancy, Friday night 9 to 11 on Comics Unlimited. I will likely be back on Sunday. Again, depending on what I find out tomorrow, I will make a big announcement once I find out. I will likely be back Sunday with a sales show from 4 to 6, 5 to 7, something like that. I will let you know how that's all going to shake out. And then Monday, Comic Collectibles is back. We will have second shift lunch. And
West Coast Comics.
West Coast Comics. Bronze will be back this week. Sorry. I was reading Steve's comment, and one of the fun things about, and we'll wrap up with this. One of the fun things about the area that I occupy in comics, Steve, is that I have a lot of friends from a lot of different places. And one of the fun things that I've been able to do over the years is put indie creator A in touch with big mainstream creator B, and they do a thing. Or, mainstream creator A with mainstream creator B, and they do a thing. And that has been really fun. A lot of times it's a writer with an artist, especially like cover artists. Like, again, it's, oh, hey, I've got this book. I'm an indie creator. I need a cover. Well, hey, why don't you talk to my friend, mainstream creator who's looking to do more covers right now? Or again, an announcement that came out today, you're Scotty Young looking for somebody to draw some Fairyland. And I happen to know a guy named Jay Fosgate who will be perfect for drawing Fairyland and who is going to be drawing Fairyland.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. So again, that's always super fun when you have somebody, again, like I've been able to do it. I know Spencer Beck does it a ton. Where, you know, people who just occupy a little bit of a different space in the comic world are able to connect people. You know. So anyway. All right, guys. We're gonna hit it here. I'm gonna take off and go put my foot up with some ice on it and watch some Reacher, and hopefully the throbbing goes away.
Yeah.
And Jay probably needs to eat some dinner. Assuming Jenna's home and brought him some dinner.
Oh yeah. I ate a little bit before the show.
Well, that's good. So we will see everybody next time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for playing along. Next week, we have half a slide deck we never got through when we were fantasy casting last time from Jay. So the second half of Jay's fantasy casting slideshow next week.
Yeah.
So make sure you tune in for that, because that one's going to be super wild. Just because, again, he's taking the time to look up all these obscure actors. I'm like, why aren't we just getting mainstream guys to do this? So it'll be a good time. But we will see you all next time here on the EXP.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.